Big story in America today. We're talking about it here on Drive Time with DeRusha. Birthright citizenship. We've just accepted this for generations. And today, in front of the Supreme Court, the Trump administration argued the constitutional case, which I think is weak at best. But I'm asking about the policy side of this. How does it make sense that just because you're born on American soil, boom, you're a citizen, no matter whether your parents are here illegally or not? I don't think it makes sense. 651-461-9226. Where are you at on this idea that only 30 other nations really have some form of this birthright citizenship? And the reason that we have it here is a good one. I mean, birthright citizenship was created in order to take slaves who had been freed and give them citizenship. So that historical situation, what does that have to do with life today? Nothing. Has nothing to do with life today. And frankly, in a time where we are really refocusing as a country as to what it means to be a citizen, and I think in many ways we're doing a terrible job of focusing on the real meaning of being an American citizen. The idea that just because you were born on American soil, boom, you're in. I just cannot get my arms around it. It makes no sense to me from a policy standpoint. If you were in charge, would you get rid of it? 651-461-9226. Texter from 507 says, no, it makes no sense. It should be ended. The origin of this is very good. Again, I think the constitutional case that President Donald Trump could just have an executive order and end it. Give me a break. But if you brought forth legislation in the U.S. Congress, what's the argument? What's the argument why this is a good idea? In many countries around the world, lest you accuse me of being racist or whatever, many countries around the world are tightening up sort of the requirements to be a citizen. And in many countries, if you want to be a citizen, the way it works is like you have to have some kind of genetic or family link to a citizen. Now, I do think there are situations where it makes sense, where you would say, all right, like born in the United States, like what if you're born and abandoned? Well, I mean, what are we going to do, I guess? If you're born, I mean, there are a number of like little circumstances, right? But like, say you're from Italy and you fly here to the United States and you're on vacation and the baby's born prematurely. It was a surprise, like, whoa, we're 2 months early. Boom, now that baby's a U.S. citizen. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Howard is in Minneapolis. 651-461-9226. Howard, you're up first. What do you think? Does birthright citizenship make sense in our society today?
We're going back to 1965 and President Johnson when he signed the Voting Rights and the Civil Rights Act and the GOP 7 strategies. This is Jim Crow 2.0. This is white nationalism. That's all this is about. They call them anchor babies. This is disgusting.
So, all right. So what you're doing, Howard, is you're looking at the motivation here as to why the White House and why Republicans are talking about this, right? That
The first time the president has ever sat in the Supreme Court during arguments.
yeah. Well,
Wow.
don't you think he was just curious? I mean, if you're the president, like, isn't it pretty cool to like go see your case in front of the court?
He doesn't respect the Constitution. You should have a constitutional referendum. You should bring this to Congress. He's shopping for judges
Yeah.
to get this change.
I have a
That's the
feeling
Roy Cohn
that
playbook.
like the effort to intimidate the Supreme Court, if I'm a Supreme Court justice, I'm having a pretty good laugh about that with my lifetime appointment. And this sort of petty, ridiculous man showing up thinking he's going to intimidate them.
He doesn't respect the laws or our Constitution.
But do you think, Howard, so I will stipulate that the point you're making is accurate. But my question is, from a policy standpoint, if you brought this up today, does this make sense today?
The origins of it was, coming out of slavery.
Yeah, of course. The origins 100% made sense. And I understand why it was put in the Constitution or in the Bill of Rights. This made absolute sense to make sure that newly freed slaves had citizenship in this country. But that's not the situation today. There are 200 to 250,000 people every year is the estimate, born to people who are undocumented, mostly Latinos. And does that make sense? If you're not a citizen of America and you're here without proper documentation, you're here illegally, should your child automatically be a citizen of this country? I think it's a difficult question.
I go back to him quoting Mein Kampf, and 62% of white evangelicals agreeing with this quote from Mein Kampf, that the immigrants are poisoning the American bloodline. This all fits in with the white nationalist agenda.
Howard, thank you. Appreciate it. 651-461-9226. I will say that I agree with Howard that there has been a way disproportionate focus on this issue by the administration, which for sure makes you say, all right, like, how worried are we really about some of this stuff? Is this significant of an issue in the United States that this should be the major focus? I don't think so. But I do think there is validity to having a conversation and focusing on the policy implications of what does it mean to be a citizen of the United States of America? And what do we think when it comes to what do we think when it comes to refugees coming into this country? We have massive wealth disparity, massive problems in our education system. So don't we have enough to take care of with the people who are already citizens in this country, let alone if you're here illegally, you have a kid, boom, that kid is a citizen? I just don't get why that would be a reasonable policy. Texters coming in. If you make this change, it would have to be going forward. You can't make it retroactive. Totally agree with that. Now, I will say, to flip back to the legal side of it, the constitutional side, if the Supreme Court rules that birthright citizenship, that the president does have the ability to say, we're done with it, there's really no way for the Supreme Court to say either the way we're interpreting birthright citizenship is correct or incorrect, and only have that apply forward looking. And some of the justices today, when I was listening to the oral arguments, they were discussing the real effects of if they rule with the administration and they throw out birthright citizenship. Well, any Congress then could pass an act that says retroactive. All these people are out. Let's break. Marty and Jeff, stick around. Lots of text coming in as well. Talking about the policy. There's constitutional questions, of course. The Supreme Court will decide that. But what do you think about the idea that if you're born here in the United States, boom, you're a citizen? 651-461-9226.
Drive Time with DeRusha is fueled by Luther Kia of Bloomington. Go see Dan Dingman and the crew today, or always online at lutherkiaofbloomington.com.
No fooling. It is Chris Lindahl time. Jason here for my friend. This is no April Fool's joke. Chris Lindahl and I have known each other for a long time, and I feel great recommending him and Chris Lindahl Real Estate to you. So the question is, arms wide out, you see him on the billboard. How does the guaranteed cash offer fit with your circumstance? Well, it's no mistake. More and more people throughout Minnesota are accepting that big red check that they get at the end of the guaranteed cash offer. And this is not only because people are looking for a quick path to cash. It's part of it. You close in as little as 2 days. But it's also because the way we sell houses today is broken. Agent commissions, headaches. Is the buyer going to back out? Is the inspection going to be a thing? What's the interest rate going to be? On and on. And how picky are people? Am I going to have to spend a bunch of money to upgrade my house and clean it out, and on and on and on? Chris Lindahl can give you a guaranteed cash offer and you're done. No headaches, no sleepless nights, just a big red check. Find out with a free smart seller guide if it makes sense to you. You can get to the website. It's the same as my friend's name, chrislindahl.com.
Chad back here once again talking about Pella Windows and Doors, the best in the business. Over 100 years they've been around. I lived in one house with Pella Windows and Doors. Moved, and when I moved, absolutely went with the best in the business, PellaNorthland.com. They'll work with any budget, any style, and they have great warranties. How about this one? In April, 0% APR for 72 months or 20% off your Pella project today. PellaNorthland.com.
Hey, Jordana, I'm Brian. I'm 58 and single. I have a house, a bunch of investments. I have a sister I'm close to, but no kids or anything tying me down. So I never really worried about planning for the future. Recently, a friend of mine passed away unexpectedly without a will or a trust, and it created a huge mess for the family he left behind. I don't want to be a burden on my sister. I want to be prepared. So why should I choose Gutman Law?
Hi, Brian. Your instincts are correct. If you were to do nothing, the state would decide who's in charge and how to distribute your assets, which is probably not what you want. And your sister will have a lot to sort out by herself. Now, this is the reason why I chose Gutman Law. My family, Matt and Jamie, were so sensitive to the nuances of my situation after a divorce. An estate plan is more than just names and numbers on a piece of paper. It's family. Making it easy on them is what matters most. From healthcare directives to wills to living trusts, Gutman Law can help you determine what type of planning makes sense to protect you and your loved ones. 612-895-1616 or go to mnestatelaw.com. Gutman Law, giving you peace of mind today for tomorrow.
At Audion Hearing, our mission is simple: to make better hearing affordable for everyone. We're proud to offer high-quality, rechargeable hearing aids starting at just $98. Clear, comfortable, and ready to use right out of the box. And here's a study worth hearing. Research shows that wearing hearing aids can reduce your risk of dementia by up to 61%. Join over 1 million happy customers and hear the difference today by going to audionhearing.com. That's AUDIEN hearing.com.
Veterans and active duty service members, when your call to service ends, your mission doesn't have to. Go from GI to IT in just a few months at My Computer Career. Prepare for a high-demand career in cybersecurity, protecting people, systems, and institutions from real cyber threats. Cyber warriors are needed now. Will you answer the call? Go to mycomputercareer.edu/CWP to learn more. That's mycomputercareer.edu/CWP. An Elite CompTIA certification partner. VA education benefits are available to those who qualify.
This is Drive Time with DeRusha on News Talk 830 WCCO.
Lots of opinions on this issue of birthright citizenship. Obviously, the Supreme Court will take a look at whether the interpretation gels with the statute. There are lots of practical considerations with just having the Supreme Court overturn this, but lots of texters saying, like this 612er, Jason, I would get rid of it. I would get rid of this idea that you're automatically a citizen if you're born here. And the texter says, and I'm mostly liberal and a staunch hater of Trump. Another texter says maybe it should be abolished, but it needs to be done in the right way. And that means a constitutional amendment. No other way. Marty's in Albert Lee. Marty, thanks for listening. The idea that Born here, you're a citizen. Where are you on this?
Yeah, like I've called in before on the topic, and that last texter nailed it. If it's to be overturned, it cannot be done by this process. It would have to do by striking out that constitutional amendment and having a new constitutional amendment. But if we want to have a talk about it of mixed thoughts,
Yeah.
I am not for overturning it, with the exception of I do not think birth tourism should be allowed.
Yeah.
You look at the immigrants that are here that everybody's railing on right now. Their parents are here working to provide a better life.
Yeah.
You get the Chinese nationals and the Russian nationals that have been coming to California and Florida, well documented for the last 3 decades, to enrich themselves. They're already millionaires in their country, but they just want their kids to have the option of being an American citizen. I don't feel that should be allowed. But then to further it, this was not a constitutional amendment just for children of the slaves. This was because that was an era of mass migration and immigration to this country, and it simplified the process. We allow the parents to, they're working on their citizenship, which was a much different process than it is now, so their children born here would become naturalized citizens upon birth. But also with those citizens, we must remember, if they were applying for citizenship and ever committed a crime, a misdemeanor, in certain misdemeanors or felonies,
it was over.
They could lose their citizenship and be sent back.
Yeah.
So by that, Marco.
All right, Marty, we're going to let you go there. I think you're getting the call waiting is hitting Marty right when he was on the air. I get where Marty's coming from and the history on this, and I do think, we can also look at the motives and say, what a chaotic, ridiculous approach to immigration that we're having as a country right now, right? We're going after all these side issues without dealing with the major issue, which is we as a country have sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, allowed all millions of people to come to this country without proper documentation, with sort of a phony hope of making it through a refugee process because we need workers. And so we do need immigration. The state of Minnesota needs more immigrants. And immigration is going to be the quickest way we can grow our group of employees. We can grow our economy. So having easier legal pathways, more functional legal pathways, yeah. Man, don't you wish we were working on that instead of like, we're going to go send in, ICE to harass Minnesota, and now we're going to do this. Eric is in North Branch. Eric, where are you on the idea of birthright citizenship? Would you get rid of it right now if you could?
No, not even close. I think when they created the 14th Amendment, they had a reason, as your previous caller said. But to your last point, I think that having more immigration, and this is kind of a thing, Congress needs to pass laws to encourage more and deeper legal immigration so that we have workers. Because we don't have enough in this country right now. That then helps solve a whole bunch of things. That you build the tax base, you build Social Security base, you start adding those things that we're kind of slipping on right now. And then you work.
Right. Eric, you're breaking up a little bit on us, but I think we get the idea. I appreciate that call. Jeff in Little Canada, you're on CCO. Where are you on this idea? What would you do with birthright citizenship?
I would get rid of birthright citizenship. The 14th Amendment in itself is very problematic, but that's a discussion for another day.
Yeah.
And as far as immigration goes, if we could get rid of the welfare state, you come here, you support yourself. If you can't support yourself, hit the road, basically. Does that make sense?
Your idea is that if you got rid of the sort of safety net or the welfare state, as you say, then you could open it up and say, like, hey, let's have plenty of immigrants who want to have jobs.
Right. And particularly Canada and Mexico, we've got a special relationship. You want to come here and work for 5 years? Come on up, work for 5 years, and head on back home.
Jeff, thank you. I mean, I will say, like, I wish we have more conversations about how do we fix immigration instead of how do we stick it to immigrants. which certainly seems to be the vibe that I feel. But I also think there are policies that were created. It is part of the magic of this country that we go back to the Constitution. We go back to what the intent was when they created something. But I also sometimes think that that system, which is so great for our country, well, I think it handicaps us from reacting to a very different world. Today you have planes, you have, I mean, it's just so different from when the 14th Amendment was put into place. And Congress could do something at any point. At any point. It's available. Take action. And they don't do squat, and then you get the situation that you have today. Anytime over the last 40 years, we could have done something to modernize our immigration pathways in this country. And do we? We do not.